Boys, straight off the top, we'll mention the $100,000 Blue Diamond Day tournament for Top Batter this week. There was plenty of tickets that were won last week in the 25k tournament.
I got a free ticket, Juppy, because I'll tell you what I did. I went all in on the first with all Cerise, Blendwell and Digger Pony. I split the money, but put all my money in. Then I completely forgot about it until race 7 or something or whatever. I think it might have been the Dan Zephyr race, and I won enough there to get myself a free ticket. But I think having 2 bets a day in the tournament's probably not going to get there.
Not in the real big ones.
I think we need to have a strategy meeting about that, which we will be doing.
So, $200 buy-in. There are 5 rebuys. It's a 100k tournament, guaranteed 50k to the winner, but there'll be prizes all the way down. These are the ones that you really, really have to be getting involved in. So put together, either buy in yourself or put together a syndicate and get whatever information you need. So whether you get pots of sat or you get Ralphie stuff from racetrackralphie.com, just make sure you arm yourself and then chime in, and you'll be taking on some of the best around, and you can try your hand, and if you're lucky enough you can win $50,000.
Not bad for a $200.
Yeah, and no, that'll be cracking entertainment for the day too.
They are great fun.
Absolutely.
So that's this weekend, and then we build up towards the big $250,000 one during the championships. So this is one of our big ones down here. So make sure you get involved with that. Boys, I think, well, I definitely know all 3 of us. I've spoken to a few other boys too. Everyone's loving the Weekend Wisdom articles that Mark's writing.
Absolutely. No, so for those that not sure what to we went Mark Lambourne's articles he's writing. He's got a great blog with some terrific stuff on it. I mean, I read Monday's one, and I just wanted to give Mark a rap because I stopped doing form in Sydney in December. I didn't bet in Sydney for the last few weeks because of the 30-minute gap debacle. Couldn't get there, so I was completely out of touch with the recent Sydney form. And I picked up Mark's set on Saturday morning and spent half an hour reading it, and I had exactly the experience that Mark was talking about in Monday's article about the Rumpelstiltskin thing. I had the reverse of that, where my mind wasn't clouded with all the recent form and the nuances of that meeting, and I was able to spot a couple of things that turned out to be really quite valuable. Now, maybe I just got away.
Rumpelstiltskin's overthinking it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's overthinking.
Yeah, I have read the article. Because and I'm sure Mark's referred to this on the show before, super forecasting, I certainly have. As in Mark's referred to it on the Sydney show. Super forecasters call it the tip of your nose effect. And that is, as soon as you think of that, that's what it is. And the deep sometimes paralysis by analysis goes into it. So it's the same, it's a very important thing, I think, to look at a race and say, well, I like you, but then remember that thought, park it, do your analysis deeply, but don't forget your original thought, because if you immerse yourself, basically, in it, you will have a very good intuition. Yeah. It's not, this isn't someone walking past and saying, well, I like number 4. Yeah. It comes from Daniel Kahneman, writes a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. Okay. It's basically, so it's trained intuition. Yeah. So his Angle was a New York fireman, it's a true story, walked into a burning building at fire chief, he'd been there for 30 years, it's upstairs, they run in, they start hosing around, and he just says to his bail, he says to his name, bail. And he didn't know why, but he said bail. So they bailed, and within 5 seconds of bailing, the floor fell through. The fire was actually in the basement. Now, that was the intuition. Yeah. That's just your gut feel from being a 30-year expert in the field, but all of a sudden, no, something not right here, we've got to get out of here. And it's just like a chess master might walk past 2 blokes playing and say, well, move the rook or something. So the more you immerse yourself in the sport, your original thought is often right. So you've got to make sure you don't talk yourself out.
So the point is, I've done the form for 5 years in Sydney, so I knew pretty much all the horses, okay? But I wasn't bogged down with the minutiae of that meeting. And I got Mark's set, so I know Mark's prices have got all the hard work in them. I know his maps are accurate. So the first race I looked at was the one that Himalaya Dream won, right? Yeah. A bunch of duck eggs, and I didn't even watch any of those runs. But I had a really clear picture in my head. Yep. Last time I saw it at the Rosehill 1500, it beat Silverball. And here it was in a race that Marin Ostre was favourite for or whatever, you know. It just seemed easy to me to back Himalaya Dream. So this is the reverse Rumpelstiltskin thing I'm talking about, where I wasn't burdened with overcomplication and just found some really obvious things. The next race, Mark had assessed it a match race, so I know that's right. Yeah. I know it's a match race, and Mark was heavily in the corner of... can't think of the horse's name now, Rose of Man. Yep. So I just backed Rose of Man. It just seemed obvious to me, you know what I mean? So I'm saying, sometimes if you don't get yourself too bogged down, it can be helpful. It can give you some clarity. So I mean, I would have had no hope of doing that with Flemington because I was bogged down with details and everything. But because I didn't have any of that burden with Rosehill, I made a little bit of money out of just getting Mark set and having a clear mind. That's all. And I'm saying, A, that shows you the benefit of getting Mark Lambourne set, and also of having a bit of clear thought. How long it'll last, because eventually I'm going to have no feeling for the horses in Sydney. But at the moment I've still got enough to...
Glenn's mentioned it before, it's all about purity of thought. Just, it's often that first one that comes in your head when you look at something, 9 times out of 10 it's your intuition, and normally it's right.
Yeah, I have to get back to my house and actually have the Dero...
the Sambo said that and I've got to get back to selling big issues. Like, someone's got to get down to Flinders Street and sell them, they're not going to sell themselves. The reason I'm having to sell big issues is because I bet with some very good on-course bookies. Mickey Harrick is who I did business with on Saturday, and therefore I didn't get the protest payout. So that's the reason I'm livid.
So we're going to set this up because we can't assume that people watching heard interviews, and you can certainly assume that I didn't. and to paraphrase Terry Wallace, because for a very simple reason, if I had have listened to an interview, I would have spewed up. So I'm nice and easy. Don't listen to any interviews. I looked at it. I thought that's the most ridiculous thing I've seen. I don't want to know your reasoning, but I will look at the steward's report because I'm very keen to see how long Dwayne Dunn gets suspended for savagely dropping anchor. And I noticed there wasn't even a mention of it. So when I read stuff like that, amongst other things, and I'm happy to go through them all, I lack a lot of faith in the decision-making process when it comes to on-track, not jumping fences and testing laboratory samples and everything else. All I care about is what happens on track, and I see things like that, and I'm disillusioned.
Well, the question that got asked on jury duty, and I would, if someone from, and I'll tweet the question to RV Stewards when I get a chance, was Alfie Matthews, who's in the hub up there at 400 Epsom Road, and clearly communicates with the stewards panel during the day, was his opinion asked or sought during that inquiry? Because as a former jockey, he understands the risks of an anchor drop like that and what could have possibly happened had...
From the risk perspective, I'll accept that. Yep.
Just to say...
But you know what? It doesn't even need that. You know, I accepted that, get Al's point, but do we, do we need to have been on the space shuttle or known that, when it went to pieces, it probably wasn't a good idea to be up there? I mean, this is pretty simple. Savage anchor drop, he avoids trouble, and more to the point that the momentum wasn't that big a disadvantage to Tavachi. And if anyone says that early in the race or in the middle of the race is the same as when you're fatigued and out, well, and I saw Mike Simons, who's I like Mike, but he said, it costs 3 legs and it doesn't matter where. Well, Mike's a passionate jumps man. Yeah. Are you going to tell me if you hit a jump, the first jump, it's the same as when you hit the last jump?
No, it's not. And the thing is, the other horse had time to recover from it.
Come on.
I want some real mindful holding work. Get off this line.
It's all painful. I mean, honestly, first of all, I've already explained my view on protests. I don't care. I cop it sweet. If I lose one, I cop it. If I get one, I cop it. Whatever. I don't get protest payout, so it doesn't. I just move on, right? But the phenomenon we saw on Saturday is, to me, like the slow motion replays in cricket and the replay for tries in rugby league. When you slow it down, it's completely different to watching it at real speed. Just go and watch that race at real speed. It's a nothing issue. Those two horses raced each other for 600 metres. The right horse won. The test of this, Terry Bailey, will be when the market goes up for the Australian Guineas. And I promise you, mate, that Palantino will be less than half the price of Tavachi. because he's a better horse. He beat him on Saturday because he's a better horse. Now, you might make your little excuses why he upheld the protest, good on you, whatever.
Give me something.
Now, the problem is, you've upheld the protest, whatever. 80% of people, in all the surveys that have been floating around in social media and so forth,
not
or whatever.
quite hot. Super Racing, which is the Herald Sun, said that Twitter was evenly divided about the protest. Super Racing, you need to go onto your Twitter account and fix it because it is up. It's inland from shit creek.
But anyway, look, the vast majority of people were bemused by that protest. So anyway, it would have just blown over. But for Terry Bailey to then go out into the media yesterday and say the decision was obvious, it was a no-brainer. What you're doing is kicking sand in the face of people that can choose whether they want to bet or not. They don't have to be part of Racing Terry. Okay, I've got no choice. I've got to do the form for Sandown tomorrow. I'll be here betting next week. But these people don't have to bet if they don't want to. And if you go and kick sand in their face and make them feel like they're getting touched, they will go and bet on something else. So what you did yesterday on the radio saying the decision was a no-brainer and it was completely obvious and that anyone that thinks the protest shouldn't have been held is basically an idiot, is foolish. And you've done racing harm by making those comments.
Could I ask one thing? Previously, when I was paid, and part of my job meant I had to listen to all this.
Yep.
And now I don't. Terry Bailey would often say, it's my job to get riders back in one piece. That's my priority, is to get riders back in one piece. Now, I look at that protest and I look at Mark Zahra taking evasive action at 60 kilometres an hour, as you say, real speed, to an anchor drop, which is not, whatever opinions can come and go, this is not an opinion, this is fact.
Yeah.
Dwayne Dunn slammed the anchors on top of the up, and it is measurable. It's not guesswork, it's measurable.
Yeah.
So he's taken evasive action, and when I said a couple of things on Twitter, obviously people who were listening told me, I heard that he said, well, you can't shift Palantino's problems onto Davachi.
What they said in the hearing was that he avoided the interference and then made an additional shift. So they're saying that after the incident was over, he then caused Davachi additionally interference.
This is a French word, frog shit. So, how could you not say that that is in contradiction? To say that your main job is to make sure that it's safety first. Whenever there's a big race suspension or something, he says, well, it's not up to me, we have to make sure that safety is the priority. That when a rider takes evasive action to a savage anchor drop, and you do not even question the rider who does the anchor drop, how can you not say that's a contradiction in terms of, was that asked to him?
Oh, that happens every week, Ralph, you know what I mean? Like,
No, was it asked to him about why?
No.
It's not a contradiction to say that you've taken a race away from someone, and he would have been suspended, by the way, if it was intentional. So he didn't get suspended.
Yeah, you got a reprimand.
To say you can't shift it onto something else staggers me. Now, here's my go. I am totally and utterly disillusioned by the self-publicity involving our integrity team, and have been for a number of years. And when I was on RSN, I used to mention it occasionally, and I would do it smartly and inside the tent, knowing that you have to walk inside the boundary line when you're on those shows. And then and this is for a fact, I resigned from RSN once Racing.com owned that particular show. And I realised that I wasn't going to get any support. So I walked away from 500 a week, and more than happy to, because I didn't want to compromise my integrity about it. Because when I saw things like Kane Ashby and Dion Villella, the Gotcha Squad, trying to get, and the post photo, I'm thinking, now this is just wrong. So, this is what I'm setting up for. A couple of weeks ago, Good Weekend. In the Age and the Sydney Morning Herald, and this is the type of thing that they would call AB advertisers in the media world. In other words, the people with a fair bit of dough. Darrow, what's his name? Sambo probably might not be in that category, but these are the premium, and that's why when you pick up Good Weekend, there's an ad for going overseas, and there's an ad for Emirates Airlines, and there's an ad for BMW, right? So to see the chief steward on the front page posing with his glasses and a big feature article, I'm thinking, Christ, what is going on? Now, there's only two ways this could be in the Good Weekend. Only two ways. One, the person from the Good Weekend rang Racing Victoria and said, I would like to do a story on this, I find it so interesting, or Racing Victoria or someone representing Racing Victoria pitched the idea to Good Weekend. Now I've been told, and I'm not going to say by who, but it's a significant racing person, that there's a place called the Bastion Group that is now representing PR for Racing Victoria.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if it's true, and I'm not going to bother checking. That's the beauty of me not being in the media anymore. But that tells me, is part of their role, that they think it's a good idea to promote our chief steward in that type of light. Because I'll tell you what the knock-on effect is and why it's so bad. Because you read that about the chief steward getting shot at, you read that about the baseball bat, you read that about the trainers who were offside, and in fact the original article on the front page, to me, it's borderline defamatory, and I think the trainers should have at least asked a question about it, because it connected the fact that trainers are being done over with shots at the front door. The whole article was about how much Terry Bailey is trying to stop cheats from racing and the criminal element of racing. Now, to the AB advertisers, or the AB clients who read Good Weekend, they read that, if they're not mad passionate about racing like us three are, they would say, well, racing's full of crooks.
Yeah.
And then they get a phone call from a mate saying, listen, we've just bought into a horse, would you like to be part of it? Why would I want to be part of a sport that's that? Now, Racing Victoria should have knocked that back. If they proactively sought it, that's terrible. And I know enough about the magazines to say, because I know for a fact I couldn't have a full day off to pose for photos and do a feature article on anyone, not that anyone would want to, but that's the point. This proactivity in trying to say, wow, aren't we fantastic? Look at us, look how we jump fences and look how many people we test, has got to stop. And the point I'm making about the on-track side of things, how many races a week do you think there are?
There's about 10 minutes. There's 80 to 100 a week in Victoria.
100 a week. So there's 52 weeks of the year. So that is, how many races a year?
5,000.
5,000 meetings, races.
Yeah, I think there's more than that.
Yeah, so let's say conservatively there's 5,000 races a year, which means a field of 8, there's 40,000 rides a year.
Yep.
Terry Bailey's been doing the job for what, 8 years?
Yep.
So 32,000 rides. When was the last jockey who got seriously questioned for a ride? Now, I'm starting to say it's not good enough. Now, Potts, you previously have said that you've had good dealings with the integrity department when you've had queries about a ride. So did Dan Kelly. But the point is, why is that being kept secret? Why is it just you to them? I mean, fair enough, you to them is kept secret. Yeah. But if they say, look, we had an inquiry from a punter, and you do it as a blog, you say, and these were our reasonings for it. And then more people get to know about it, because I've got to say, it's very, very... It's
on that exact issue, Ralph, okay, I don't think there's anything there, right? So I wouldn't email them about this, because I don't think there's anything to look at. But a lot of punters felt really filthy about what happened on Saturday.
Now,
serious punters would have noticed this. There was a layer on Betfair that's been very active the last 3 weeks with a massive Betfair account.
Yep.
That was piling it onto Palantino at 10,000 a go.
To back him to win.
Laying him, so you've got to have the liability covered. He would have laid that horse, he would have stood it for at least 250,000. Right? At least.
Any arbitrage? Because it was much better than that on Thursday and Friday.
You couldn't get on to win that much.
No, of course not. No, but you think
10,000 on, taken, 10,000 on, taken, 10,000 on, taken, 10,000 on, taken. Just kept going and going and going. Okay? There are people out there, Terry, because of the way you've handled this, that'll be thinking, what's happened here? That layer who has a very high profile and would have your number, Terry, and would have the other steward's number, would have people asking questions. And it shouldn't happen. And if I was in integrity department, I'd get on top of it and make sure it's clear to everyone that there was no contact between that layer and anyone in officialdom.
Well,
you're not saying that.
I'm not saying, I don't think, no, absolutely not. I'm not saying that in any way, shape or form.
What are you saying? You've got to stomp on conspiracy theories.
You've got to stomp on conspiracy theories because there was so much money involved and it was in a lot of people's eyes, it was such a bizarre decision. Then Terry comes out 2 days later and says it was a no-brainer. It's setting fires in social media landscape, which the integrity department should stomp on because it stops people from wanting to bet on racing.
The other question I've got for Mr. Bailey is that if it was such a no-brainer, then why not release what the voting was? Like, just be clear. Like, just bring that out. And to show how good racing is at shooting itself in the foot, Potts, if you think the punters were filthy, what about the connections of Palantino that had the trophy presented to them and had been through the presentation and were in the winning owners bar when they got the tap on the shoulder that the protest had been upheld? They got the Chamindavas out of the winners bar.
For the free drink?
They were herded out of there and to have to hand the trophy over to the winning owners. Now, my question to the VRC or whichever peanut's in charge of doing that, A, why do we even have presentations? We don't need them. They're an unnecessary expense. And B, would you have done that on Melbourne Cup Day? If there was a protest in the Melbourne Cup like that, would you have still gone along and given the trophy to the winning connections while they were in a protest hearing? I mean, come on. I know it's a TV product and they want to put the presentations on Channel 7 for the advertisers, but when there's a protest, you know what? Throw to Sydney, get them to do the mounting yard or something in Sydney and talk about that, and then show the presentation after we actually have correct weight. It's not rocket science.
There should be minutes released of the protest hearing.
Correct.
Not the votes, minutes.
Yep.
So it's all documented as to what the reasonings were.
Or put the video up.
No, but the point being that you can say, well, at least, see, I read that sewage report and see no mention of Top Me Up, and straight away my respect for their ability to read a race drops.
Yeah.
Okay. Because there wasn't questioning.
No, that's a fair go on the protest.
Yep.
Now, before we move on from that race, I haven't got to the part that I'm really upset about. Okay, well done, officialdom.
Oh.
Okay, it's a fairly big field. One of the issues with drawing gate 1 in these races is that you have to stay in the barrier longer than the other horses. So then when the people at the gates go and put horses in the wrong gates and then have to take almost 2/3 of the field out again and leave the horse in gate 1 in there, so he's stood in gate 1 for a ridiculously long amount of time, probably close to 6 or 7 minutes, and then the jockey's yelling out as the starter lets them go,
no!
and an attendant in the gate is holding onto the reins of the horse, and it misses. It's the designated leader in the race, and it misses the start by 5 lengths. To declare that horse a runner is a disgrace.
Why was there reasoning there?
I love this game.
I've got no idea, but honestly, whoever put the horses in the wrong order and not enough attendance at the gates to get them in quick or whatever else, leaving that horse in the gates for that long was disgraceful. The people that backed River Wild did not get a fair go, and you ought to be ashamed of yourselves.
When it was open, you could clearly see.
Yeah, that he had the hand.
So my understanding, and I'm happy to be wrong on this one, but my understanding is the only time it's declared non-runner is if there's human interference.
Oh, we can go to Terry's answer on this. Terry said, geez, you have to be a pretty strong man to hold a horse back from jumping out of the gates.
Did he say that?
Yeah, that's what he said.
Right, so...
Anyway, like, you know, in one race, my punters backed River Wild and Palantino. How do you think they feel? I mean, I'd get over it,
well, you
right?
can ask me.
Yeah. How'd you feel, Juppy?
Well, it just shows that Brownie sent in an email and they discussed, Glenn went over his 2 bad beats with the jockeys going on strike at Kimbler and him not getting the 50 to 1 each way. That was sort of it was in the middle range of my bad beat stories there during this. So I've had River Wild where they didn't let go and they called it a runner. I've had Terra Vista where Ollie's done the million to 1 shot with the whip, and then I've had Palantino on protest. That's fine. Here's my favourite bad beat story. It was 2 seasons ago in the WNBL. It was Logan City Thunder were playing Dandenong. It was a Sunday. Dandenong were backing up from the night before where they played Townsville in Townsville, and then they travelled down to Logan to play Logan. I priced the game at, I had Dandenong marginal favourite, and the corporates went up Logan with a 12.5 point start, and they were $6 to win the game. And we bet them from plus 12 all the way down to plus 4. We were able to move the market that far. The game started. Logan jumped the blocks. They were 12-0 up with 6 minutes to go in the first quarter. When the roof started leaking and I got an indoor sport rained off, that's when I knew I was officially cursed. When you get an indoor sport washed out, that's when you know you're fucked. And of course, no betting, refund all the bets, game of band.
So that's almost even by 40 years of barracking for Melbourne.
Yeah, it's
We're cursed.
And it's the same as you forget the good ones, i.e. Max Rook kicking the goal in the grand final when no one was standing on the mark to cover the lines. You forget about those reasonably quickly. It's the bad ones that are the ones that stick in your side. So that's if you've got any bad beat stories, email them into the show, and they've got to be really sick. Yeah. So email them in. If you've got bad beat stories, fire me, because they're always just good. It makes others laugh. But the thing is, you have to just move on from as quick as you can. So
Happy Blue Diamond Day.
Yes. Well, one other thing.
Oh, one other, yeah.
Moomba's coming up, and we have a new king and queen of Moomba, Ralph.
Yes.
Michelle. Yes. Yeah. Is Michelle still riding? Well, I know she rode the van, but is she still actually punching some horses around in the minute?
We're always trying to be fair here. She would be getting a lot of money.
Yes.
And she would be being pretty silly to herself, not jumping on the corporate bandwagon, getting as much as she possibly. I know racing's mostly a core business, but at the moment, you would not believe the amount of corporate money that's available for someone like Michelle, who's presented herself very well and been a fantastic ambassador since winning the Melbourne Cup, and good luck to her.
So she has a home. She's a homeowner.
Yeah, what is it? Tom Over, what's his name?
Sambo. So make sure this weekend we've had DK and Potts sets. They've been ticking along all right. We've had a couple
just a quick update.
Bad beats there.
No, look, DK and Potts, we had a filthy week.
It's the curse of starting a new business.
Well, the first week, last week, we found a lot of horses at good prices that either ran well and didn't quite get the cash, like Conscious on Saturday, Tenacitus last Wednesday, and DK and I admittedly made a couple of blues that we're working very hard to correct. So I appreciate the subscribers sticking with us through what wasn't a particularly good week. My sets last week were okay. Sandown wasn't much good. There was a couple of good price winners there that weren't on the betting plan, but the rest of it wasn't much good. Tenacitus didn't help. Friday night at Moonee Valley was pretty good, and Saturday was pretty good as well. So last week, most people that got my stuff would have had an okay week last week.
And also add to the curse, Clemency at Pakenham went to back it at 365 was down. They were closed for routine maintenance just as I'm about to have a bet.
That's one of the things I'm learning about the provincials. I mean, when I did that race, it was $5.50, and I thought it was a really, really good bet. Then I've ringing up Juppy trying to get on at $4.60 and $4.40, and 365 was down. By the time they jumped and it went around $2.20, it didn't really interest me anymore.
Did it win?
Yeah. Just.
He collected.
So make sure you hop into the tournament. You can grab Ralphie's stuff at racetrackralphie.com.
Or I'm out of a home.com, whatever.
Yeah. Or if you see me down at Flinders Street on the way home, I've got a wife and kid to feed, so buy a big issue. You can grab pots of stuff for tomorrow, Friday Night Light.
I've already done Sandown tomorrow, and people that get the set tomorrow, Friday and Saturday will note there's a slight change to the sets, or a new addition to the sets, where rather than describe the map in words, I'm actually just putting it on there so you can see it. I've plotted every runner for the meeting below the set of prices, and then a comment about what I think the key features of the map are. So a bit more of a visual aid in terms of the mapping for the subscribers out there.
And just quickly, one last thing, Mickey Harrick, the bookie, got in touch with me. He still goes to Sand and Dogs on a Thursday night. The Gold Guide has now finished, so a lot of the punters that used to get those to do their form, they've sort of had to adjust now, basically because the only place you get the form now is the industry website. So after 50 odd years of business, that's been wound up. So it just means Mickey has to change the way he does a bit of business.
I will say tomorrow too, guys, the meeting at Sandown's a very good meeting. There's a few really smart horses there tomorrow. So even if you don't bet there tomorrow, have a look at that meeting. There'll be form come out of it that will win Saturday races.
And we'll be back this time next week.
With rocks in our head.
Yeah, and we'll be equally as ginned up. We'll see you then. Good luck, guys.